But I think with us, we've kind of built this community whereby like our customers really are advocates. One of the jokes that one of the guys will always say in a podcast to try and wind me up is that our customers are our number one marketing tool.
My name's Peter Sumpton, and this is the Marketing Study Lab podcast. A podcast for those that are thinking, have thought and are doing, or already have a marketing qualification. Or even if you haven't, and you just want to know that a little bit more about what good, happy marketing is. As we cover a whole host of marketing topics, I chat to some amazing guests, each one a superstar in their own niche. And if you have a burning marketing question already, or after this episode, get in touch. We'll chat it through. peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Or find me on LinkedIn. The link is in the show notes. If you'd like to leave a review on iTunes, this will really help others find this podcast and spread the marketing word. Now let's get on with today's episode. How important is copy within your marketing strategy? Well, it turns out very. And we'll find out why later, or a little bit more about that later. But before that, I'd like to introduce Craig Hannan, the head of branding and marketing at the Anfield Wrap, an award-winning independent podcast, website and radio show all about Liverpool Football Club. It's Craig's responsibility to drive growth within the company via subscriptions, live events, merchandise, sponsorship, and a whole host of other activities that are focused on a clearly passionate footballing demographic. Now, this is quite a long interview compared to some other Marketing Study Lab episodes, and I put that down to the passion we both have for marketing, football, and Liverpool. So I apologise, but I kind of don't, because I enjoyed it, and I'm pretty sure Craig had a half-decent time, so I hope you do too. If you're into marketing, or football, or sports, then this is definitely the episode for you. But just before we get into all those things, I need to know if purple is the new red.
Yeah, this must be to do with the fact that Liverpool have a purple kit, and do you know what? When you think of the colour purple, I think you think of like royalty and luxury, and so I'm all right. Maybe purple is the new red if it means that Liverpool can be seen as royalty, and I love the kit as well. I think the kit's brilliant. I didn't at the start. I wasn't sure about it, but I think I'm a big fan of when it's on the footballers. I think it looks good on them. Not so much a fan of whenever it's on me or like fat lads at the match.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, so I'm glad you did. Okay, tell us your story. What's been the formula that's brought you to this stage in your career as head of brand and marketing at the Anfield Wrap?
It's been a funny one. I kind of, not that I fell into marketing, but I didn't study marketing at uni. I studied journalism. I thought I wanted to be a journalist, and it took me studying journalism for 3 years to make me realise that I didn't want to be a journalist, which is a regret. But it's worked out okay. I think the formula is kind of two things really. I think the first thing was once I realised that it was marketing that I wanted to get into, it was very much about throwing myself in the deep end at any opportunity and taking a few risks along the way, I think. And then the second thing, I think people giving me chances, and that's like a big sort of theme throughout. What this sort of made me think about my own career to date, and that's been a theme throughout, is people giving me chances, believing in me, and having those people there that you can learn from and who can help mold you as a marketer. And like as I said, I didn't study marketing. I took a job at a local gym after uni as a membership advisor. It was just a job. It wasn't a career. And it was there that I had time to think about what I wanted to do. And I found that I enjoyed going to their business development meetings, and that I had a few ideas when I was talking to them without really knowing that these were marketing ideas. And from there, a lot of what I did during that job was being, self-teaching myself, whether that was just little tactics that I could use to increase gym memberships, or, marketing theories or whatever, but mostly tactics. And it was mostly very, very basic stuff. And I think it was after that I got offered a job as a digital marketing assistant at Charleshurst, which is a big automotive dealer in Ireland. They're part of the Lookers Group. And it was there that the manager there, Scott, gave me a chance. And he knew my background. He knew it wasn't. Yeah, I hadn't studied marketing, but he knew that I would listen and sort of sponge up any sort of information that he gave me. And that really was being thrown into the deep end, because working with, being the sort of the marketing assistant or the marketing executive for car dealerships and car dealers in general is a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Considering you don't have you don't have a lot of experience in marketing. I think it was a steep learning curve, but it was like it was invaluable. Like I was getting paid hardly anything, but like what I did get out of the job was just invaluable experience that I still look back on and still use today. And yeah, that was from then I moved to Trinity Mirror, the big publishing company. Worked at Liverpool Echo and for their regional newspapers, and that was as a brand executive. So it was just sort of implementing existing like marketing campaigns that they'd been doing for years. There wasn't loads of creativity about it, but it was completely different to the job before, and I think that was a good experience. And sort of by the time I'd left there, I was managing the marketing team, social media advertising for the different regional newspapers. I was working on football app launches and the launch of a new football brand, and it was more the kind of stuff that when I started in marketing is what I wanted to get into. But most of what I was doing was tactical rather than strategic. It wasn't that was what my manager and her manager was for. It was very much you were given a campaign, and here was the start date and here was the finish, and it was up to you to implement it. And that was about the most sort of creative you got to be, really. And when I'd moved over to Liverpool to do that job, I got involved in the Anfield Wrap just as a contributor. And that was again throwing myself in the deep end. I'd never done anything like that. I didn't like public speaking. I'd never spoken on a podcast. I said yes because I'd moved to Liverpool and didn't know anyone. And from there did sort of helped them a few times with their marketing and just little tactics here and there, and sort of that was just to try and show them what I could do. And then eventually they offered me the job.
Really, was it all sport that you were interested in from the marketing point of view?
I think it was sport from any sort of point of view that I was interested in. Like it was the same at uni when I did journalism. The idea was always, well, it started as music and sport journalism, but then at uni quite a bit of what I did was sports journalism, and I really enjoyed it. And I think I really realised at the end of uni that it was sports that I wanted to get into more than actual journalism. And then I'm lucky to be working in sports now, but although that might have been like an aspiration when I started in marketing, it's very difficult to see yourself in that role, I think. And,
yeah.
And I think at Trinity Mirror, when at the beginning they were giving me campaigns that they've been doing for years, and that was sort of you were giving them, and then it was up to you to implement it, and that was it. And by the end, I think. They were giving me more opportunities with, like I said, the football app and the launch of a new brand of theirs. And that was when I sort of realized, yeah, this is what I want to do, because I'm one of those people that whenever I'm really whenever I'm enjoying what I'm doing, that's whenever my work ethic, I will work and work and work. And I find it very difficult if it's something that I just have no interest in, which is something you shouldn't really admit, I don't think, but I think it's something that I've learned in different jobs, that I had to be in a job where it was something that I was really enthusiastic about, and I'm lucky that way, I think.
I think it's okay now, because I get the impression that you're enthusiastic about what you do at this moment in time anyway. So speaking of that, can you just explain what Head of Brand and Marketing does?
Yeah, so So I don't know if this is what the head of brand and marketing does at in other jobs, but so because I think we're a very unique company. So when I started, it was a completely clean slate. They didn't have there was no there was nobody working on marketing for the Anfield Wrap. In Trinity Mirror we had a regional marketing team. There was a national marketing team. There was marketing directors. There were all these structures in place for the marketing. While with the Anfield Wrap, I came here and their marketing up until I'd started was done on an ad hoc basis. It was whatever they had enough time to do. They were a small team, and it was and that was how it was done. There was no strategy, and that was my first responsibility. Really, was to write a marketing strategy for the business, and that took about sort of 2 to 3 months. And yeah, that was and from then it's been sort of implementing and I suppose developing that as I learned trends and learn more about the business. But I think probably in the broader sense, um, my role's been to sort of change the culture within the company and its way of thinking. I think they've done incredible to build up the podcast from what was a hobby to now it's now a business of 12 staff and 70 odd contributors, and they've done really well to get it to that stage. But to take it further, they needed someone from a marketing background that just analyzes the data and understands their audiences and has strategies in place for different aspects of their marketing, and someone to measure and analyze the activity and just always ask why are we doing this, and what's the story that we're telling, what's the messages that we're putting out there. And that's I think in a very broad sense that's what my role has been. But with it being a small business, our roles, each of our roles are very fluid. So yeah, I do marketing, but I'm putting in place strategies for the merchandise, or I manage their live events and do content as well. So it's very fluid, and we all help each other out. But yeah, that's what I do as a head of brand and marketing. I'd love to hear another podcast with a head of brand and marketing to see if what I'm doing is similar, really. But I think that goes back to the fact that I didn't study marketing, and I love reading up on. I'll read anything marketing now. I love reading pieces from CMOs and all that kind of thing to understand how they think, and that goes back to the fact that I studied journalism and I studied the wrong degree. So when anyone listening and you're studying CIM or have studied it, you're one step ahead already.
I think you bang right what you said there, and I think ahead of brand and marketing or any kind of marketing director, it's there to provide a strategy and more of a focus in a marketing direction, which you clearly do, and you clearly have done with, like you're saying, setting up the strategy and everything. And so, but in every industry, you're going to have different variations of that.
Yeah, definitely. It's I think the most exciting thing about it has been that it's been the clean slate. Like I talked before about my previous job, and it was very structured. It was very much, this is what we'll do at this time of the year. And football is different, but the fact that they had no one doing it before me meant that I could come in, implement my ideas, and I think as well, working for a small business means that a win feels much bigger. It feels like there's when we do something well, it's like it feels like a big win for us, rather than if I was a head of marketing or a market manager at a big company where there's so many people involved, and it's just, yeah, that's what we do. And I think that's the exciting thing about this, and the fact that there aren't many podcast subscription services out there, and there aren't many team specific podcast subscription services out there. So a lot of what we do is, yeah, we try and use our previous data, and I try and use what I've learned over the past almost 2 years working here. But a lot of what we're doing is we're trying to sort of push the boat out and do something new, and that's the most exciting thing about it, I think.
Absolutely. Plus, you couldn't be wrong because you were the first one in the job, so win-win.
There's no one to tell me there's no one to tell me I'm doing it wrong. No, do you know what? Like you are right, and in a little bit, but I think because we're such a small business, I think when you're a small business of 10 or 11, next week I'll be 12. But when you're in that, it's everyone knows what everyone's doing, but also it's very easy to measure a win, and it's very easy to know what a win is, and and I think that, to be honest, I've told my managers this, but like when I started this job, the first thing I wanted to do with the team was to allow them to understand what I was going to be doing, and that was part of what the strategy was. And I say there that changing their mindset and their way of thinking around everything that they do, and that was the main thing. And I think it's quite difficult to explain to people sometimes what marketing does whenever they don't do marketing. And that was the thing that was always in the back of my head, was that, ensuring that I prove my worth from the start, but they also know exactly what I'm doing all of the time, and that was a big thing.
When you talked about the Anfield Wrap, then you mentioned the podcast, which is possibly one of the more successful elements, if not the most successful elements of the company at the moment. Why do you think that is? Why has it been so successful?
I think it was the first of its kind. First of all, I think it was the first Liverpool FC podcast. It almost certainly was one of the first team-specific podcasts, and I think what it's done is it's brought fanzine culture into the digital age. Like, fanzine and print, I suppose, to a certain extent, is dying. And what we do now is we're real fans that care about what we're talking about, and we're talking about the club in a authentic way that maybe mainstream media doesn't. And I think that's always been the idea around fanzines, really, throughout the past however number of years. That's what they've been about. It's about real fans' views that you don't get in the newspapers, and I think that's what we do. And I think that when we do live shows all over the world, and the thing that I'm always doing when I'm at those places is asking the customers, calling them customers feels crude, but they are in this sense. When we're talking about marketing, they are. But when we ask our listeners or subscribers, how they got into it, how they found out about it, what's their fear, basically every single question I will ask them, and usually what happens when you ask them those questions, if they're in America, it's the idea that we share the experience of supporting Liverpool FC. They kind of live it through us, whether it's the post-match show because their friends don't support Liverpool and they want to hear Liverpool fans talk about the game straight away. They don't want to listen to BN Sports or Fox Sports or whatever. They don't want to hear the pundits. They want to hear the fans that were there in the stands talk about it. And I think that's why it's been so successful. Like I was a listener and a subscriber before I was involved.
Wow.
And the reason why I listened to it was because it was during the 13-14 season when Liverpool were going for the league, and at that stage I just wanted to consume every single bit of media that are out there about Liverpool, because Liverpool were on their way to the top of the league, and they don't win the league, but they were involved in that title race, and I wanted to I just wanted to consume all of that. And I think that's why it's become so successful, is that that wherever you are in the world, you can sort of feel and listen to you can listen to real fans talk about it and feel the excitement and feel what it was like to be in the ground and listen. You watched it on your sofa, but you got to listen to us describe it. And I know that's like to football fans or non-football fans that might sound mad, but that is what we get back most from our listeners and subscribers.
And if you think about the culture, if you'd have said 5 or 10, maybe 15 years ago that you'd spend a Saturday when you're not at the game, you'd spend a Saturday watching four fellas on a TV screen describing goals and games, you'd say you were mad, but you've got a point there.
I think that's part of the wider, we can see what's happening with fan media at the minute, and there are many different types of fan media. There's the fan media that supporters are doing in their bedrooms, and it's literally they're just going on YouTube and talking about it in their bedrooms. They've got Arsenal fan TV who are outside the ground and who are their popularity is growing almost at the expense of their football team's performances on the pitch.
Yeah,
It's very
sure.
much like, put a camera in front of an angry fan at the end of a game, and that video will fly. And then I think with us, we don't want to do that really. We don't want to be journalists. We never want to. We don't want to be in the press box. We want to be in the stands, but also we want to tell the full story of supporting Liverpool, not just the elation of a win at the end of the game or the anger of a defeat. We want to tell the story of what it is to be a Liverpool fan from the heart of the city of Liverpool, which is, whether that's what's going on in the community, whether, what Liverpool the club are doing in the community, whether it's the post-match shows straight after a game, the reaction, whether it's interviews with ex-players, current players. We want to, it's the whole package. And I think, there's some incredible journalism, and there's some incredible shows on TV, like that. You watch Neville and Carragher and they're brilliant. You watch some of the stuff BT Sport are doing, and it's unbelievable. But I think what we do is it's bespoke for Liverpool fans, and whereby BT Sport might talk about Liverpool for 5-10 minutes at the end of the game, but if they listen to us, they can get a video in a pub, and they can get drunk football fans. It's not authenticity. That's what they want. That's what they want to hear. And I'd be really interested to see where sort of fan media is in 10 years time, and kind of where we are as well, because it's on the up, definitely.
I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about the Super Bowl, and somebody was Facebook living from the side or in the stadium or whatever, and the comments that they got was that they were watching that Facebook live rather than watching it on the TV because it was more of an experience.
Yeah, but
crazy.
Also then I would ask, like, why has someone spent all the money to go to the Super Bowl and watch it through their maybe they're a nicer person than me. Maybe they're trying to share the full experience rather than rather than just watching it themselves. But that is interesting. I think that's like, there's a little bit of that you can take from that, which is, probably the podcast that's talked about most, more than any other that we've ever done, was a post-match podcast immediately after Liverpool beat Dortmund 4-3. And within that podcast, there was very little football analysis, because it was just, it was drunken exuberance, and it was, the excitement of a last-minute winner in Europe. And but that's what the customer wanted. That was like an eye-opener for us, because that is what they want immediately after the game. They want that joyfulness, and they want to hear what that atmosphere was like, and what it was like when the goal went off, and when the pyro was let off, and that's what they want to hear. And there was, within that podcast, there was drunkenness, there was nudity, there was everything. But that's our listeners still talk about that, and that was kind of an eye opener to us, that we want to. We want to share the story of what it is to be a Liverpool fan, but we want to make sure that we're removed from what the media offer, because, what we offer is more exciting, and we'll never have the budgets of the BBC, and well, we might someday, but at the moment we don't, and Sky Sports and all of that. But what we can offer is completely different and removed from that, and I think that's why it's been successful.
So is that, just sticking with that theme, is that what you look to do when creating content for such passionate listeners that you've got?
I think so. I think that if we're creating content, we see. I know brands can say this all the time, and they can, you hear brands talk about, like, our customers are advocates and of our brand and all of this, and they've got brand loyalty. Like, I Apple will say, our brand loyalty is this. Now, I always wonder about how much brand loyalty is true, because I know if I'm buying a chocolate bar, but then another one comes out that looks nicer on the advert and sounds better, I'll buy it, and that's it's through market research, our closed Facebook group, on social media, forums, we're always asking and monitoring what our customers and listeners say, and so everything that we do, we'll just ask them, do you want that? And that's the joy with having a studio downstairs, is that it's very quick for us to turn around a podcast. But if someone says, so if a customer says to us, I'd love to hear you talk about such and such, we can just go and do it. Or, in our market research, one of the top things that come back was that their favorite shows are reaction specials, us reacting to things, because they want to hear us react to it, not, Sky or, interviews with players, because they want to hear us they want to hear a fan interview a player, ask fan questions, the question, we want to hear the answers that are the questions that fans would want to ask, rather than the line that a journalist needs for a story, because his boss is casing him for a story, and he needs Klopp to talk about. Do you get what I'm saying? So, that is, I think, separating ourselves and removing ourselves from what the mainstream do, and it is a big part of it. And telling a story from the stands rather than the press box, because a journalist can write about the atmosphere, but he can't tell you, the minute the pyro went off, and the fall when the goal went in, and the clambering over seats, and the crawling over your mates, and that's the difference. And yeah, it's, I suppose, if one of our values is authenticity, and that's what we're aiming for, then we have to tell the story as a fan, and not try to be a journalist.
So I think you mentioned one there about telling the story of being in the ground, and the bits that maybe a structured piece by a journalist couldn't do. But are there any differences between marketing to a football audience compared to other industries?
I think as long as you understand the audience you're marketing to, then I don't think there are really. I think, I still use tactics that I used in my two old jobs, whether it was marketing to within the automotive industry, or whether it was the campaigns within a newspaper. I think where it's different for us is the cycles. So, like, I spend my life planning for things, and writing little mini strategies for things, but for football, quite often it's reactive, and so for me, quite a lot of the plans that we put in place are around big events and sort of capitalising on moments. And for instance, last year Liverpool go far in the Champions League, they get to the final, and it was about us ensuring that at the moment where Liverpool beat Man City at home, that we've got our plans in place, that it's just a hit go, right? This is what we do. This is our content plan. This is our marketing plan around that. And I think that's where it's kind of different, or at least it's been different for me, is in my last job at Trinity Mirror, it was more, this is the date that the campaign's going to start. This is the date that the campaign's going to end, and it's up to you to implement it within that time frame. And I suppose with football, where it is reactive, whether it's to events are going to happen, or whether it's a signing that comes out of nowhere. And that's one of the most exciting things about the job, is that at those moments, whether it's at 11 o'clock at night, sometimes it is, or whether it's whether we've known about it for a day and we're just waiting to press go and everything. I think that's kind of where it's different, that a campaign within football, you might think there's a start and finish date, but then a spanner's thrown in the works that you have to sort of work around and try and plan for in that moment. So yeah, I think that's where we're slightly different.
So you mentioned just at the start there that the roughly the same kind of marketing formula, if you like, regardless of what industry, if you can call football an industry. But the content can be very different, and I know you have a whole host of different types of content: video, blogs, podcasts, etc. Is there a process for creating these types of content?
Yeah, so Neil Atkinson, who's our host, he's our CEO. He'll, to be fair to him, he'll come up with quite a lot of the audio content. He'll be coming up with the ideas, but as I said before, it's a very sort of fluid business, in that, like, we are all coming up with ideas, and on a regular basis. And I think as well, it goes back to us asking what the customer is, and asking what the customer wants, and that relationship that we have with our listeners is that, quite often we'll bounce ideas off them. And then I suppose with football, you know that there's going to be these set fixtures. You roughly know when they're going to be. That during a transfer window there's going to be potential signings. There's going to be links. So what content do we create around that? And I think from a marketing point of view, one of my jobs really has been to look back at how subscriptions have gone during different times of the year. And one that springs to mind is that when I joined, there was the idea that the summer time's a really difficult time for us because there's no football, and people will unsubscribe because they don't think there's going to be, they think the content's going to slow down because there's going to be nothing to talk about. And sort of we then had to decide, right, how do we counteract that? How do we, what messages do we put out that no, actually it doesn't slow down? There's as many podcasts going out. There's the transfer. What are they interested in? And when we asked our customers, we found that their one of their favorite shows was, well, the two favorite shows were reaction shows and transfers. So, right, let's do more content. Let's do more content around transfers. And that's an example of where marketing, almost decides what the content's going to be, and asking the customer what do they want, and that helped us. Summer's one of our busiest times now because of that. So yeah, I suppose it's different things. It's the team, it's Neil, it's knowing what games are going to be coming up, and it's asking the customer what do you want, because they're the ones that are going to subscribe or are going to listen. So yeah, there's no real set process. Quite often it'll be someone walking into the office and saying, "What do you think of this idea?" "No, that's rubbish." "Okay, next one," and going from there. Or, "No, it's not rubbish. People have said they like this kind of show before, so how can we change that to make it more now?" All of these things, but ultimately everything that we do often comes back to, well, as a listener, do you want this? Is this what you want to hear? And I think I've mentioned our relationship with our listeners. It's something they always say is that they feel as if we're their mates. They feel as if they're listening to us in the pub, but that they can't speak because they're not on the podcast. But I think that's why it's brilliant, because they'll also tell us what they think, and they'll tell us that they think something's shit, and they'll tell us why sorry to swear there, they'll tell us that they think it's something's rubbish. They'll tell us if if they really liked something, or if there was something we said they didn't agree with. And that's great, because it's ultimately you're getting feedback every single day through social, through our forums, through everything really, and that helps shape what we put out then.
So have you ever had a plan for something and then the team's done something or something else has happened and you thought, "Oh no, scrap it"?
Yeah, the big one I can think of is Liverpool look as if they're going to sign Nabil Fekir in the summer, and we have friends that work within the media, and sometimes they'll be able to let us know, yep, this is a go, or this is about to happen, and we have our strategies in place for new transfers anyway, and we've developed that over time through learning from the past transfer, what worked, is there something new we did. But with Fekir, we had a plan in place, we had artwork created, we had podcasts done, we had video created, we had our audiences set up to ready to go for facey adverts, and on Twitter we had everything in place, because pictures had leaked that he'd been wearing Liverpool gear and he'd done the interview, and that was all true. But at the very last minute, the medical team find there's something wrong with his knee and that he won't be able to sign before the World Cup, and he might not sign at all, and he never signs at all. He never signs. That we'd spent all this time creating this content for this signing, and that's the unpredictability of football, I suppose. And that was so frustrating. It really was frustrating. But then you try and work out ways of how do we counteract that? How do we react to the fact then that it's not happened, that it looks as if it was about to happen, it doesn't, and I suppose it's just about you thinking, right, what's the plan B now? But that was definitely a big example of that.
Well, at my age, I can tell you, it's always the knee that gets you. Always the
Oh,
knee.
don't you worry. I know I've had three knee operations now, so I felt like I knew his knee when I was reading. I was like, oh yeah, I think I know what he's done here. So,
Yeah. Giving him advice.
yeah.
Okay, just bringing it down ever so slightly, with such an engaged partisan audience as football fans can be, and looking at a lot of what you do is on social platforms, so you can get negatives that come with that. How do you deal with these negatives, such as comments?
I think there's that old. I remember working in retail and them saying the customer's always right, and I can tell you that's not true. I really can. But also, like, although we even this week, we'll have listeners or subscribers giving us feedback about things they don't like, or things they think that this has happened on the podcast and they weren't really a fan of it. And it's about, as long as it's constructive, then I'm okay with it, because positive and negative. Positive and negative comments about our content or whatever, that can help make our content better, and it can help shape our own ideas, or how we're going to approach things. I think as long as it is constructive, then we're okay with it. I think we've started to do more and more video content on YouTube, and YouTube is by far the worst in terms of the content, the comments you get. And that's because they don't have to have a profile. They can just say what they like, and they never have to be accountable for what they've said. And quite often it's not constructive. It can be personal. We've had quite a bit of that. I've had it 2 days ago. Now, we're lucky. In terms of, if you look at other people's videos and stuff, we're really lucky. We have a lot of goodwill, like we really do, and both in the city and around the world. Like, it's very difficult to get that balance between ensuring that especially within the Liverpool fan base, because there's so many different parts of it. It's so complicated, so much more complicated than you would imagine it is. But we have a lot of goodwill, and I think that it's just about trying to take the negative ones on the chin, and if it's constructive, then using it to make us better. But yeah, it's mad sometimes. It really is. Thick skin.
Yeah, but you just got to look at it from the other point of view as well, and think some people have taken time out of their lives to type this in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, honestly, like there's been, to be honest, another thing that we've done before, and I know that Robbo, who is sort of the face of our video content, he does almost all of it. There's been times where he's actually read out the negative comments. I'm not sure if you've seen, but like mean tweets, where they've I think it's a show in America where they get celebrities to read out the mean tweets that's been written about them. And we've done that a couple of times, where we've turned it into like a bit of a joke, and try and sort of take the mick out of the person who's done it. And I've found myself at times going back to comments, even if they're not constructive, and then I'm like, oh, why have I done that? So, on a personal level, I try and just stay away or laugh at it. And from a business point of view, as long as it's constructive, then we use it.
I remember, just speaking of Robbo, just now it comes to mind. I watched one of the videos, and it was talking about what would Liverpool fans be like if they won the league. They would be terrible. They would be. And his answer to that was just, yeah, we would.
Yeah, well, that's the social media is mad. Like, I use Twitter every single day, whether it's for work, whether it's for personal, mostly for work. But it is, at times, it's just this hotbed of like horribleness, and like, sometimes I wonder why I'm on it. But like, especially with opposition fans now, it seems to be this thing where it's like, between football fans, you always have to get one up on each other, and it's always, It's always, it's always absolutely terrible. It never can be okay. It's either terrible or it's brilliant. It's always so contrasting because the he who shouts loudest, that idea. And I think that, yeah, it's a social media is a mad thing in terms of football fans, and I think it's just about trying not to take it too seriously. And that would be my advice to a lot of opposition football fans who will, we will put up tweets now and then to try and just laugh at Evertonians and laugh at our rivals, and they take it really seriously. And it's just, no,
Yeah.
I wouldn't even go near. I wouldn't look at an Everton blog or a website or a social media account. So just concentrate on your own team. That's the thing.
I think one of the classic comments is always just don't read it, just don't watch it. It's simple as that.
It's like, yeah, that's we did it. We do tweets that maybe sometimes are close to the line and close. Sometimes we have to ask ourselves, do we tweet this? And it's never it's never malicious, but it's we know it'll stir opposition fans. But like I just we're a Liverpool FC podcast or website or social media channel, so everything that we do will be for Liverpool and Liverpool fans. So if you're an Everton fan, and you don't like what we're doing, well, tough, because you will never be our audience, and that's the thing I always think. No, look, I love the job. I love the unpredictability of it. I love I love, obviously I love Liverpool FC, and I love the idea of just being able to think about that every day. And I think that tips, I'm like I was I think going back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast is that throw yourself in at the deep end, and just if you're at uni, or if you're studying, and you're studying a marketing, what's the word,
Qualification.
yeah, sorry, yeah, if you're studying in any way, and you're wanting to get into it, is just there's always the bottom of the go to the bottom of the ladder. If it's football you want to get into, then there are going to be non-league teams who don't have big sports marketing teams, or there is going to be a podcast somewhere. It's what I did, was I just continually harassed them, not harassed them, that's unfair, but I continually offered help in different things, and just tried to show what marketing could do for the business, and slowly but surely that worked. So I think just there's always somewhere that won't have the budget for a big marketing team, or needs more bodies, whether it's a non-league football club, whether it's any sort of sports association. There's always a way in. And I think especially with the Anfield Wrap, like when I look at the people that we've employed, it's been even before whilst I've been here, it's been people who have done work experience, or it's always been from within. And I know that's not great news to anyone who wants to work for the Anfield Wrap, but if you think about how you then get to be in the inn, and that's through work experience, and just being always being positive on work experience, or offering work for free. I know, like, everyone should be paid their worth, and that's something we always try and do. Is if you're going to be offering your service, you should be paid. But also sometimes free work is just a way in, and it's a way of learning different things. And I think that's how I would go about it. I think my route into marketing, I'd imagine, is weird in terms of how I've ended up here, how I didn't do a degree, or I didn't do anything like that. I've done courses, and I've done qualifications since, but to get into it, I didn't. And I think, and then one last thing, I suppose, is if you're in a job where you can twist it into, if you can sort of mold it into something that you like, and that goes beyond sports marketing. Like with the Liverpool Echo, when I was there, some of my campaigns at the beginning were dreadful in terms of what I was being asked to do, like Baby of the Year campaigns and Win a Wedding, like just things that I didn't enjoy at all. But whenever there was a, as soon as I knew there was a sports, they were launching a new football brand. I was saying to them, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that. And I suppose if you're in an industry where it's a little bit widespread like that, and if there's any sort of foot in the door, then just go for it. I know that was a long-winded, rambling answer, but I think hopefully we got there at the stage. Just offer yourself up to do.
Yeah, I think you picked up on a few fantastic points there in terms of you offer your services, go for what you're passionate about. Don't be afraid to jump in at the deep end. You don't have to have the qualifications. You can gain them later if it's something that you really want to do. But there's a whole host of things there, which is fantastic.
It's just basically getting some form of experience in something that you want to be part of in the future, and so that whenever that job does come up that you want, whether it is in sports or whatever it's in, that you've got examples of campaigns or work that you've done already, and it doesn't even have to be sports. It can be campaigns that you can relate to something that can be done within sports, and yeah, I think that's the way I would do it, is just work experience, trying to get your foot in the door some way, and I suppose reading up on what Liverpool FC are doing, what Man United are doing, what someone like AS Roma, who are unbelievable at their social media, what they're doing, trying to learn little things from sort of industry leaders that you can use in your job.
Absolutely. Craig, are you ready for some quick fire questions?
Yeah, I'll try and not ramble on with these ones. I promise I'll keep it one sentence if I can.
I'll let you have two if you need them. Name one must-read business book.
Okay, I'm gonna have to ramble here because this it probably isn't a business book, and I don't read a lot in terms of books, and it's only when I go away on holidays that I read. But recently I read Shoe Dog, which is about Phil Knight, who is Nike pretty much. He's the person that has made Nike what it is, and that it's not a business book as such, but it's just so interesting to learn how a business works and the risks that he took, and the fact that they're making millions and millions and millions, but they're just about surviving, and just learning how he dealt with things, whether it's as a leader or a marketer or the CEO of a company. Sorry, that was long-winded. But yeah.
No, not at all. Just on that, actually, there's a podcast called Business Wars, and they take two big giants in an industry, and one of them's about Nike versus Adidas, which is quite interesting. About six in the series, quite interesting.
Yeah, it is, even in the book, him talking about how he could defeat Adidas and how he could be different to Adidas, and what they, just getting into his mind as a business owner, and as someone who just at times, he had nothing at one stage, and he was taking so many risks, and he was risking his house, and then to be where he is. You often think with these companies, he talks about making 50%, going year on year, 50% growth, but he still was just about surviving, which is something you wouldn't expect, but it's so intriguing.
What was the last thing you Googled?
This is so boring because I've just got a new laptop, so it's Propaganda, which is where we get our pictures of Liverpool FC that we use for our content. So I'm sorry, it's really boring, but
it's quite topical. I'll let you off. What is your most used app at the moment?
Again, this is really boring. It's Twitter, and I think aside from that, I use Dropbox a lot, just because a lot of the content we'll use or we'll create is spur of the moment, and I use Dropbox all of the time to sort of get it from my phone to my computer, or for someone else to be able to go into the Dropbox and lift it. A lot of what we do is very whether it's at the match, we want it to go up now. Well, I might not have the, maybe our social media manager's better at putting it up, or do you know what I'm getting at? It's just basically putting it in a place that other people can use. Other people who are more equipped and better at doing what they're doing to use it.
I love Dropbox. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's such a boring answer, but it is. It's great.
I know, but it's still quite topical, so I'll let you have that one. What is your favourite theory, concept, or methodology?
Yeah, so I've said before that I didn't study marketing. I've been doing a mini MBA, which has been brilliant, and I've done different sort of growth courses and around the UK and stuff, and they've been great. But one of the things that we've used quite often is the benefit ladder. So, um, like what's our product feature? What's the product benefit? What's the functional benefit? What's the emotional benefit? And sort of helping the Anfield Wrap to understand what we are, what music, what messages we use, and why our customers listen to us, and that sort of has helped focus us whenever we're working on different things.
And finally, and most importantly, what is your favourite goal of all time?
You see, you've asked this guy, and like I'm finding it difficult to say them in one or two sentences. But there's no way I'm going to describe this goal in one or two sentences
No,
because
go on, go for it. Take as long as you want, actually.
it isn't about how the goal looks. Although it looked lovely, it's not aesthetically how the goal looked. Like when I think of my favorite goal of all time, I think of like how it made me feel at the time. What was the circumstances? How big a game was it? Who scores it? And so mine's last year's is the Champions League at the Etihad, Mohamed Salah versus Man City, where Liverpool are 3-1 up in aggregate. Man City looked as if they would clawed their way back in, and it was in the balance. And Salah pops up, dinks the keeper, and at that moment, Liverpool fans know that they're through into the Champions League semi-final, and they've beaten City. And it was everything that I've described earlier about what you want as a football fan, which is the absolute elation, the falling over each other, the hugging, and to watch Mohamed Salah sort of celebrate with his arms wide in front of us like he's a godlike figure, and to be able to watch back us in the stands just looking absolutely insane. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite goal of all time. But then hopefully maybe a few goals this season will eclipse that.
Yeah, it would be nice, but that was a special moment. Craig, finally, if people want to find out more about the Anfield Wrap or get in touch with you, what's the easiest way to do it?
The easiest way is probably you'll find us online, theanfieldwrap.com. You'll find us on Twitter, on Facebook. Twitter's probably the best way. It's at the Anfield Wrap. If you wanted to get in contact with me, I'm on LinkedIn. I am on Twitter, C_Hannan, HANNAN7. And yes, like my email address is craig@theanfieldwrap.com. I can't imagine there's going to be loads of people wanting to talk to me over email, but like I'm always happy to answer questions and yeah.
Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. Mainly because I'm a massive Red myself as well. But all things marketing, all things football side, all things marketing, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
So how do you pick takeaways from that interview with Craig? Difficult one. But I think the first one would be the power of a marketing strategy. Most people, when they think of marketing, think of the comms mix, the front of house, advertising, direct mail, social media, etc. But Craig highlighted that a strong strategy can help to change the culture of an entire company. It provides a focus for the whole organisation where no other department is in a position to actually do that. Don't be afraid to get creative and implement your own ideas, but make sure you mix these ideas with actual data to back them up. They hold more relevance that way. Take the Anfield Wrap, for example, described as fanzine culture for the digital age. They could have kept to a traditional print fanzine, but spotted a niche, a gap in the market, white space, and weren't afraid to be the first to try it. And as much as marketers hate to admit it, word of mouth is one of, if not the best marketing tool we have. Damn those mouths. This is especially so in such a passionate industry as football. Using these loyal fans, well, advocates as they should be known, to promote your own products and services, combined with a robust communication strategy, can be a very powerful combination. And remember to listen to the customer, giving them what they want, not what you want. How important is copy? The short answer is very. You wouldn't be listening to me now if it wasn't for an audio version of some copy, and you certainly wouldn't have heard of half of the organisations and brands you hold so dear if it wasn't for copy, be it in the form of a script, blog, social post, literature, advertising, basically the majority of the comms channels you can think of. Then add some more. Use copy as the fundamental basis of engagement with you. But why is it so important? Here are just some short snippets to explain why. It creates trust. If your copy is consistent and correct, this adds a layer of trust. Words are very shareable, especially on social channels, and are more likely to be read than a video is to be listened to, unless the video uses copy. Copy's great for SEO, digitally speaking. Optimization is all about the copy. And as we all know, if you're not on the first page of Google, you're not on Google. It makes for a good UX or user experience. Everyone loves a great image and a slick web page. But if the copy isn't correct, this detracts from the user experience and leads to clicks away from your site. And finally, it sells. It appeals to your target audience and resonates with them. And this leads us nicely back to the know, like, and trust theory. Thank you so much for joining us today on Marketing Study Lab. It really means the world that you're listening to this out there. And hopefully I've provided you some value. If you're looking to know more about what Marketing Study Lab does and is about, go to marketingstudylab.co.uk or get in touch with me personally, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or feel free to email me at peter@marketingstudylab.co.uk. Happy marketing.